friends, it's Cindy Brumbaugh from CindyLeeBDesigns.com, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Today I have a sneak peek at the new Good Morning Magnolia stamp set and bundle that's coming out in the new catalog on June 4th, 2019. It's got a beautiful suite with embellishments and ribbons and stamp sets and dies and paper, so you are just going to be amazed at how beautiful it is. So we're going to be using the Good Morning Magnolia. This is a beautiful stamp set with a big, beautiful bloom here, a smaller bloom, a nice detail to put on the insides of your cards or to match the die that comes with that. So we're going to be using that along with these great dies here. Now look at these dies. You can actually make a magnolia with this die here. You can layer it. And I took pictures the other day in my daughter's yard of the leaves and the petals that came off the magnolia trees, and they actually look exactly like them. And so you've got this big die to cut out the bloom, and then you've got some of these lacy type dies, which you can see through, and you have the die that cuts out the bloom. And I'm going to be showing you how it's a little different than our old dies, but works just as great. And so we're going to be using this really neat detailed edge die here. So why don't we just pop these dies out right now? I love whenever we can use these little open dies here. They don't cut out a specific image in the stamp set, but they cut out just like a cutout to pop in here and there. So we'll be using this die today on this card, and we're going to be using this cool edge die here. So I'm just going to set this aside in front of us and put these over here and take another look at the card here. We're going to be doing this die cut here, and then we're going to be embossing it using our pine wood planks. Ah, so glad this little guy is staying. Even though the hardwood stamp is leaving, if you haven't got it, you better pick it up now. But we will still be carrying our pine wood planks embossing folder. And I love that one. So we're going to be die cutting, and then we're going to be embossing with that. And then we're going to be using some new dies also that are coming out. And these dies are the stitched nested labels dies, and you can see there's a ton of dies in there. And on this card we're going to be using the two dies, I would say, that are the third and the fourth die. So you can see there's a ton of dies and a die here that also makes an impression here. So we're going to be using these two dies from the stitched nested labels. As you notice, we have new packaging with our dies coming out, the Stampin' Cut and Emboss dies, and the name of the stamp or the die set is actually here right underneath the big black label on here. And they close a different way too. They actually slip in, instead of slipping in this way like the old die cases, well, envelopes did, this one actually pops in this way, and it's actually a more secure system of keeping them in there. I travel a lot, and my dies are in these plastic envelopes, and if you're like going to crops or going to card making classes and you're taking these things, they're very much more secure. They're much more secure. That would be the good grammar there. So anyhow, we're going to be using these stitch nested labels dies, and I'm going to set those aside because we already got these out. So let's look at the gorgeous paper. Oh my gosh, this Magnolia Lane paper. I think of all the paper that's ever come out, this is absolutely my favorite. You've got beautiful hues of green and pink, the petal pink. I see a little saffron in there. We're using mossy meadow and some black, and you can see all the different patterns here. We're going to be using the smaller Magnolia set on a petal pink background, but these are all the different patterns that are in there. So this paper is so gorgeous. So, and we're just using a small amount here, but look how it really sets off on the card. You're getting that really pretty use of the designer paper, but yet you're focusing up here on the stamped images and some texture here. And look at this here. We've got this new part of that suite that's called the Magnolia Lane ribbon pack, and it has this beautiful mossy meadow twine, and then a really pretty, it's like a crumb cake woven ribbon there, and it's a nice sized ribbon. It's not too thick, not too thin, just a perfect size there. So we're going to be using that on the card as well. Okay, let's set a few of these things aside and look at our card components here. We're going to use Mossy Meadow for our card base, and that is going to be a 4¼ by 11 inch. Okay, so we've got 11 inches by 4¼ and we're scoring it at 5½. So that's just a half size of your cardstock. 4¼ by 11½, and we're going to score it at 5½. So there we've got that. In the inside of our card, we just cut off and trim it to 4 inches by 5¼ That gives us a nice 1/8 inch border all around the card. So 4 inches by 5¼ I will have the measurements on my blog post for my card for the Good Morning Magnolia card, and you'll see all the measurements for to cut your paper. Now there have been a few times that Cindy Lee B has forgot to post those, so I certainly do not mind if you shoot me a text or an email and say, Cindy, get those measurements up. So then we're going to be using Petal Pink for the front of the card here that we're going to do the die cut on. And that piece is going to be 4 inches by 4½. So what I'm going to do is show you the way I did this. So the 4-inch side is here. So on the bottom of the 4-inch side, I just put the die, and as you can see, the die has this nice detail on here. And what I'm going to do is put it flush with the bottom of the paper. So you can see it is flush with the bottom of the paper. You're going to run that through your Big Shot, and when you bring it out of your Big Shot, you'll then run it through the pine wood planks. And what you'll end up with is, ta-da, right here. You have this beautiful front to go on there. And as you can see with this die, all I did was cut off that bottom portion there. Okay, so you just look at the word Stampin' Up, and you put this right along the edge of the Petal Pink, and you just run it through the Big Shot. That little piece falls off, then run it through the Big Shot with the pine wood planks embossing folder. You've got nice texture on here. Now you'll notice on the card is I wanted a little bit of border with the Mossy Meadow to accentuate that really pretty die cut there. So what I did is I just took a piece of Mossy Meadow, and I just made sure that the Mossy Meadow was over 4 inches so I could play around with it a little bit, because 4 inches is what the card, the panel on the front is. And I did the same thing that I did with the Petal Pink. I just put the die flush with the bottom. Now if you go up a little bit, it'll be fine. You want enough room though there. So I just put it flush with that piece there. And I made this 1¼ or 1½. But you just want to make it flush, run it through, and then you will end up with this piece. Now see, if you look at it this way, it started out like this, and then that part fell off, and then I had this piece left over. So now we can actually do something here. So then I'm just going to take some snail, and I'm going to put it on this edge here. Okay, and then you just, let's move this Mossy Meadow so you can see here. We're just going to do a nice, you'll notice when you run this through that you have a indentation from the die, which is really pretty. It makes yet another textural detail. So you can either line up using, you can either line it directly up to this line that happens whenever you die cut. Get those little paper hairs off there. You can either line it right up with that, or you can put it a little bit up and it gives it even a little bit more texture. Let's see what Cindy did here. On this first card, I covered up that line and it looks great, but look how neat it looks having the indent there and another indent there. So then you'll just take and trim off the, I know my scissors are here. Haha. I know they're underneath everything. So then you'll just take and put you'll just cut off those little snippets on the edge. I like having a little bit bigger than the 4-inch whenever you do that die cut, because when you do it, you can like move it a little bit. If you made it exactly the same size, and then if you were off a little bit, you don't have any wiggle room. So just make that piece of Mossy Meadow a little bigger than 4 inches because then you have a little wiggle room. Okay, and that is going to be going onto the front of our card. But before we do that, we want to put on also this beautiful designer paper there. So we're going to take and put, now look how pretty this is also, the opposite side. Very pretty, except for we really want to focus on those pretty little magnolias. The couple miles that are between my daughter and I think there's at least 100 magnolia trees. I didn't realize how much I'm surrounded by beautiful magnolias. So we're going to put that on the bottom, leaving a border of 1/8 of an inch around there. And then this one is going to go on there, and we're just going to line everything up. But before we do that, we want to put our twine on here, because then we don't have to like try to pull it up on that side. So what I did is I got my twine out, and then I'm going to put some of my snail on each side. And this is a little tip to make your supplies go a little further. You don't have to wind it twice around and waste it where nobody's going to see it. So you can just put your twine starting right there. Let's see, how far did Cindy do this? Yeah, right about there. So put your twine there and put it across to this side. And put another piece. There you go. You have to get it a little bit adhered there a little better. And there. So you're saving yourself some of this twine, because the twine comes in a 5-yard, which is like 1/3 of the amount that we like get on a regular ribbon spool, which is usually 15 or 10 or 15 yards. So you want to save what you can there, so you just don't miss out on that where nobody else is going to see that. So we've got our twine on there, and then we're going to make a double bow. And the way I do my double bow is I just take and give myself enough room to make my bow, and then I cut it. And then I just make a loop here and snip that. And then I just tie, actually, just tie my bow. I find it so much easier to tie my bow and then use a glue dot to put it onto my other twine, because otherwise, there we go. Get him a little smaller. Snip my bow down. I find it so much easier to put my glue dot on and then trying to tie the bow on there. So let's grab a glue dot here. And then I'm just going to get a glue dot here, right on that bow. And put it right over where that twine is, and nobody will even know that we didn't tie it around there. So we've got that. So let's get that on the front of the card now. So we're going to put some more snail, or your Tombow if you like the liquid multi-purpose glue. It's really good at adhering, so I like to have them both on hand because the multi-purpose glue gives me wiggle room, but if I have to lift up my paper, it's so much easier when I'm using my snail. So look there, we've got the front of the card done. Now I'm going to show you how we're going to do the magnolias. You'll just get a piece of scratch paper that you can fit on your magnolia stamp, and we're going to pull that pretty little bloom out of here. There we go. Put it on to your block, and then use Memento Black. Memento Black because we're going to use a little blends on here. So then we'll stamp our bloom. Get a nice black image there. Close your stamp pads. We had a couple injuries to cards last month because stamp pads were open. So what we did here is we stamped it in Memento Black, and then what I did is I went through And magnolias really are white with a beautiful hue of pink in them. There are some other colored ones, but for the most part, they are this beautiful white color with the hue of pink. So what I did is I just came back in with my petal pink, and I just did a little bit on the dark image lines. I just gave myself, and these three little guys down here are the flower. They're not the leaf. I've did some horticultural research here, watching things, looking at things, looking them up. And then I used Mossy Meadow, and you could use your dark or your light blends, Stampin' blends with the Mossy Meadow, because both of them work beautifully. And so then you're going to color in the leaves. And on this image, you'll notice the leaves are the ones with the veining in them. It's very easy to mix up the petals with the leaves. And sometimes it doesn't make a big difference there. So, especially when I colored these in green, and then I looked at the Magnolia and I was like, that doesn't look right. So then just like I said, just put a little bit of petal pink into your card there. Now, I'm going to show you how different these little dies are. Now, our old dies didn't have a piece of metal on the inside of the cutting portion of the die, but it's really not a big deal because you'll notice here there's still a white image around the die cut. There's still the white image, but we used to put our dies on and look for that. We would put our die on and we'd look for that even white border around the whole image, but now we don't. We just line it right up with the image line. And when you die cut it, it comes out with that perfect white image there. So really, it's a little different. You might not even notice. You might have just, when you get your dies, start die cutting, and your brain won't even register the difference. But all you do is you just line them up so you can see the whole image, run it through your Big Shot. And on this card, I did 2 of those, and I did 2 leaves. Ha! So there we go. We've got our 2 Magnolias, and we've got our 2 leaves. And let's get to fixing this little guy up here. So you'll notice this beautiful little label here. And like I said before, these are our stitched nested dies. And the one that I used, where is that little guy? Here he is. So I die cut that. Now you'll notice here that there's a beautiful stitching here. Okay, but this die itself, well, this is the bigger one here. It has 2 lines. So when you die cut this out of the paper, the piece that's left over is also going to have stitching on it, which is really cool if you're going to layer it on and use the negative. So that's going to be a really cool thing that we can do with these dies. Now, on this card, you could have done a thinking of you or a thanks and then just nested and layered those on. But I wanted to show you another new product we have, and that is our Timeless Tag Punch. So this Timeless Tag Punch, it goes with the Mosaic Matte. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what the stamp set is right now. But it's a beautiful punch that we can punch out great things. And it's really neat because it nests right inside of this die. Is that cute or what? So what I'm going to do is get this adhered to here, and I'm going to put some dimensionals under this label. Put some dimensionals under the label, and it's going to be going on there. But before I put it on there, I do want to put my Magnolia down, okay? So I'm going to be putting my Magnolia down, so I'm just going to get some snail on the back of my Magnolia, and I'm going to put it a little bit on the green, and I'm going to put some snail on the back of my leaf. Oh, actually, I'll put it back on the back of the Magnolia, and then put this cute little leaf right there. And then the other Magnolia is also going to go coming off of the bottom of the die. So just put some snail there and put that Magnolia there, and we'll put our other leaf on the bottom of coming out from that Magnolia. If he'll just slip over here, there we go. So we've got some, texture and things going on, and we can see that it's all going to fit onto our card. This is a little bit high though. Okay, so we've got our, let's put this Magnolia, and this is a nice reason why using snail we can kind of bring it up a little bit. See, snail is a little more forgiving. Okay, so then we're going to put our label on here. So we'll just take off our backs of our dimensionals and using this timeless tag punch, which I am just going to love. It's like a great size and it nests in there just beautifully. And then we're just going to put some snail on the back of this label. I could have popped it up, but since I already popped this one up, I just decided to keep it flat. And we'll put it right there on the front. And you can offset it a little bit so that the flowers fit on. And we're gonna put that there. And then I just added in some pearls. They were a perfect accent to, there we go. I just took one of the bigger pearls. And actually the thanks is a little bit different. So I'm thinking I might just use my medium size, these little medium ones. So let's see if you're going to cooperate with me today, pearls. Okay, so I'm going to put one down here. Grab another one with my paper piercer. Okay, come on. Cooperate. And I'm thinking, where do we think we want to put that? I think I'm going to put two like that and then one up here. People probably laugh at how long we decide on making something like this. I wish I was like my friend Wendy. She just goes and says, do it. So let's put one here. Okay, so we've got 3 pearls. Now let's take a look at the inside of this card. You'll notice I use this really pretty stamp that comes with that set. Now you'll notice this stamped image will fit into this die. So that would have been really cute to die cut the bottom of this, but I didn't. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to take that inside portion, and I played around with my Stamparatus, and I got it to where what I usually do is I take just some copy paper from my computer whenever it's just, you know, scraps, and I cut them to the size I need, and I play around with it until I find where the stamping makes a good placement. So we'll just put our paper, and for me, it worked to go 1 inch from the corner, so 1 inch, and then I'm going to do the petal pink. I don't know if you can see this, but my angle's a little different from what you see, so I just put it 1 inch. And this will be different from all of you, but that's just the great way that you could use your Stamparatus, is making a perfect placement on something. It might take a second to do the initial, well, let's take and put a stamp set under here and ink this up with a Memento Black to carry the stamping color from the front. And then I have the Memento Black on the sentiment, and I have the petal pink on that nice filigree there. And then I have my piece of paper there, and I have it over 1 inch just because it worked with getting that image down here. And it usually takes 1 or 2 tries with the scratch paper to get it exactly where you want it. But once you get it there, make a ton of cards. So we've got our black up there, our petal pink down here. We lift it up. Look how beautiful. So then we'll just remove it. You'll notice here that on my magnet, I just wrapped some Scotch tape around it, and it just helped me to be able to pick it up. I used washi tape, and it was a little too thick, and I saw it was easier just to put on some. And if it ends up coming off, you just put some more on. It's Scotch tape. So we'll move our Stamparatus off to there, and we're going to just put our inside there, and we'll just take a little snail. And remember, just put your snail in the corners of your inside, because if you run it the whole way here, you're actually creating a layer of adhesive, whether it's glue or your tape runner. And when you go to write on it, you may end up with bumps and lumps. So we just put it right on the inside of the card, and we've carried over the black, the petal pink, and the mossy meadow. Your eye sees all the colors in the inside that you see on the outside. And I like to do that when I'm making a card to see what I put on the front and carry it over to the front. Like for instance, I wouldn't have put Mossy Meadow for my sentiment on this card because I can already see Mossy Meadow. Then I see the Memento Black, and then I see the Petal Pink. So my eye and brain sees that. So is this not just a beautiful card? Very easy to do. Run your dies through twice, and a little bit of stamping, a couple die cutting, and just a really, really pretty card. So June 4th, this Good Morning Magnolia suite comes out that comes with the stamp sets, the beautiful dies, and the gorgeous paper. So be on the lookout. If you have any questions on how to make this card, you can email me at cindyleeb@gmail.com. Now that email address is different than my WordPress blog address. If you subscribe to my blog, you get a post each time I post a card or have any new Stampin' Up news to tell you, promotions or things. And that comes from cindyleebdesigns.com, which is my blog. So if you respond to that and want to say, hey, Cindy, I love your card, or great video, or you want to comment on something on that post, feel free to comment there. But if you have a private message, you want to ask me some questions or share something about your life that you want to just talk with me, please email me at cindyleeb@gmail.com so that personal chatting doesn't go public on my blog. So if you have any questions, please feel free. You can text me or call me at 724-323-2296. Thanks for buzzing by, friends.